We're live, looks like, everybody. Hey, thanks for tuning in to another one. We're in, what are we in now? Week 29 of this OS in the browser side project. Another Saturday night live stream at 9 Pacific time, as usual. I recently had to redo my Windows installation and lost my streaming settings. So the stream's going to be a little different. I don't know if I have the bitrate the same. I don't know if the audio filter is the same, the video, the different scenes that I'm going to switch to are different. I've decided to stop using the little small app for now, and I'm going to try just switching between code and browser. So we'll change it up a little bit. On the bright side, this nuking of my Windows was due to me upgrading the firmware on my SN850 Western Digital NVMe hard drive. And it turns out, if you see a video I had from a while back where I did the build of my new computer, and I bought this hard drive because it's considered one of the faster ones. And I remember at the time running it through this Crystal Disk Mark, which is like a speed testing tool for disks, hard disks. And it ended up getting like a lot slower than I expected, but it turns out there's this firmware update. I did it, and yeah, I've gotten like 50% faster, so it's pretty much at maximum now. So my computer is writing faster, but it required redoing Windows in the end because it blue screened me, and I gave up trying to fix it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Let's jump to the browser here, and I'll just kind of show you what I got here. This is the project. It's a little Windows project here. It's more of an OS. I mean, it looks like Windows, but other than the visuals, I mean, it's all just my logic and my thinking on how it should work. And one thing we're going to do today, talking about how going deep and trying to make it my own, is we're actually going to work on the file system library. It's called Browser FS that I've been using, but it's got a few bugs, and I want to work on them. That's one of the things we're going to do this episode. Like, I could probably show you the bugs so quickly. Let's try one here. Watch, I'll switch this to icon. That worked. That's good. So I open this. Okay, that's a good start, actually, to be honest. So I close it. I open it again. Yeah, you see, here's the problems already beginning. So there's this deleted files, empty folder. The icons folder is back, but I believe oh no, it's not empty now. And my icon folder is also not empty. It's acting weird anyways. I've dug into it. I figured out what's going on. There's like 5 or 6 things going on, actually. I could make another one happen now. Watch, if I add SSS to this, you see I renamed this. You see it actually renamed the icon as well. That's another glitch. That one's actually on me, but it's something I caught. What are some other weird things? If I go into a subfolder here and I try to rename a folder here, that turns into a file. And if I go back into it, you'll see it did not rename. So there's a lot of little issues that have kind of sprung up. It's kind of a cool thing with once you make it visual, it's a lot easier to test this framework because it's just like you try to do the most basic stuff and you see its shortcomings. Most of it's not my code. A little bit of it is. That rename issue is. I think one other thing is. So we're going to get into that today. I've made a branch here. Also, by the way, feel free to throw a chat message in the chat. Throw me a comment after the fact if you're not here for the live stream. If you like my videos, please throw me a like. If you want to support me, motivate me, that kind of thing, please subscribe. It also keeps you up to date on the newest videos, like these weekly streams, and if I decide to start posting more in between, which I do plan to, probably once I get this project into some kind of MVP and a minimum viable product and kind of get something out the door and put it on dustinbrett.com, which is my website, then I might start doing some other videos, some demos of some of the stuff it can do. Once it can do more stuff, that's the hope. So yeah, I got this branch here that I've made, redo episode 29, and I've been adding to it throughout the week, mostly near midnight lately because I've been so busy with work and family and stuff. I haven't had a lot of time to get to it, which has kind of made me a bit tired. But yeah, so let's get into some of these streams here. Oh, also on the note of family, my wife's out for the day, which is great, but the kids are home alone with me, so there's a chance that I might hear a bang at the door or somebody screaming, and I might have to take a quick little sabbatical break. We'll see. Hopefully not. But I can hear some rumblings going on, so I think my oldest one is ready to do something. Anyways, let's So yeah, it's like I said, this OS project. I'm going to clear this cache here for these browser issues. I think they're near the end of my stream that we'll probably deal with some of those. I have some interesting commits. My new format is to just dive in one commit at a time and kind of look at them. So I got 31 commits. I think some of them will group together actually, because I was kind of doing some tweaking. But let's start peeking them. So speaking of peek, the first one here, fix peek not showing. Oh, okay. So I think I might have broke peek last time. Let's take a peek. Take a peek at peek. So I hover over it. Yeah, nothing's happening here. There's supposed to be like a little peep window that shows up. So the fix looked extremely easy. That's nice. Let's go do that. Switch back to the code here. And what the heck was the fix again? It's in taskbar. Oh, hear my kid banging around. Taskbar. Peek, right? Let's just try to go to it through the folder structure to try to see if this folder structure makes any darn sense. Components, system, taskbar, taskbar entry, peek, styled peek. Okay, so here position right now is absolute. I think on last episode I might have messed up something that required it to be not absolute. I see here my libraries are saying they don't exist. That's wrong. Have I done a yarn install? I'm pretty sure I did. Ugh, it's frustrating when it does that. I have a feeling if I close VS Code, it'll probably smarten up. Let's quickly do that. What I'll do actually in the interim is I have another VS Code here for browser FS, the file system one that I'm going to be working on. And let's switch over to that one. Oops, what happened? Do I not have that one? Nice, I don't. Oh, and I lost the other one too somehow. That's weird. Okay, so that didn't work as expected. Let's try to flip back to this. Oh, because it's minimized, perhaps? Yeah, that might have been part of it. Let's try to flip back to it now. Okay. You win, stream. You win. Yeah, I don't even see it in this list here. What if I switch over to this? I wonder if because it's minimized, it didn't show up. Ah, here we go. Yeah, maybe because it was minimized. There we go. So this is the browser FS. I'll quickly actually show you guys some of the changes because I haven't decided how I'm going to do these changes yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a library of my own custom version of the browser FS from their repo plus my changes. But I might end up doing a PR into their repo or doing a fork in my own repo and then pointing to that. Haven't decided completely yet. I probably will just go with this build, but I would like to contribute this back, maybe add some tests perhaps if the code makes sense for browser FS to help them with some of their issues. So I'll probably end up doing that in another episode. So darn it, the resizing messed up here, but let's switch back to the other VS Code now. Oh, except it's disappeared as well. OBS has trouble with like windows that just appear wildly. Okay, here's the new window again. I have to reopen my darn thing. So we open up it again. Hopefully styled components will actually know that it exists this time. I found one issue with VS Code. I don't know the trick to like kind of wake it up, but if you nuke your node modules folder, I should probably just learn how to clean it up without doing this because resizing this is a little tedious. I'm trying to get it accurate, but I don't know how accurate that is. Yeah, I got too many monitors and they're all a little different. So to tell you guys, I don't want to have a little black line. There's no point in them, so try to cut them off and resize it perfectly for you guys. Well, good enough, I guess. Yeah, good enough. Good enough. Let's not waste all time resizing windows. So VS Code is now correct. You see styled components, I did have it. It was wrong. Now when I hover over theme, it knows about default theme, and things are working properly. So, what was I doing? Right, I just switched this to fixed. So let's see if that fixed it. No pun intended. Refresh. I think, oh, what happened? Oh, right, because I closed VS Code. VS Code was running the dev environment. So I'm rerunning it now. It's restarting. Open the window. Now when I hover, there we go. Peek is back. So I hover, and you see we get this little peek here. I don't have the click action for it set up yet. That's on the board of notes that you see behind me. To-dos. These are the dones. Those are the to-dos. The ones that are on the whiteboard are the higher priority than the ones that are off the whiteboard. That's my organizational structure. Okay, so we fixed peek. That was a simple one. What did I call the commit message last time? Fix peek not showing. Oh, how original. Okay, let's just name it that. Simple one-liner. Go back to our show notes and we'll make that the first note of the day. Let's do the package updating for the heck of it here. I like to do that usually early on. First, I always do yarn updated just to see what has outdated. Okay, there's a new React R&D, there's a new lint staged, there's a new ESLint. Browser FS is not correct about there. It'll stop saying this too, I think, in the future. We'll see. Just some types and stuff, nothing fancy. So we'll do yarn upgrade -- latest. And we'll just, I'm gonna make a note of this right now. Package updates. Hopefully this doesn't break anything, but the package updates are always the most risky part of these streams because breaking packages happen often enough. I usually do yarn updated again just to see if there's nothing there. Yeah, the browser FS one's wrong, so the rest it did correctly. Updated the package file. Sure, let's just hope that that worked and commit that. Oops, what did I press? There we go. What is next? Let's go back to our commit messages then. That one's done. I'll keep this open, but let me move it over here. Next one up is don't show peak during closing, hey? What does that mean? So I've added the check for closing. Ah, okay. Right, I have this closing condition where it's transitioning, and I think that's causing an issue. Let's try it out here. Got peak here, and then I close this. Oh yeah, you see the peak window is like, whoop. Oh, yarn dev is not running again. I turned it off. Let me just show you guys once again what it's doing because it's not right. And it's actually not like Windows. So luckily the way to make it like Windows in this case is just to disable it. That's always nice when the solution is just to kind of hide it. So if you see here, we hover over peak and then from here I close it. You see, oh, it transitions with the bar shrinking because it's in the container. But what we're going to do is have it not do that. So all I had to do is go into the use window peak. And in my process here, where the heck is it? What line did I do this on? Line 39? Somewhere here. Ah, here. Here's where I destruct the process. So let's also get its closing state. It's a little disorganized here. Why is this here? MNOP. There we go. That's alphabetical. And then we'll put closing here. And now we just need to add closing to this piece here. So we're not going to show the peak window if it's, or we're only going to show it if it's not closing. Save that. It's going to format up here as well. And let's just take a look and see if that fixed it. Now when we open and we close, this should just disappear. Yeah, there we go. So the peak window just goes away, but the bar still transitions like expected, which in my observations, that's how it worked in Windows. So, which is always the bar for me. Another message. There we go. One more done. Done and gone. What's next on my list of stuff? Lazy load components, yeah. So I think this is a good idea. In theory, I can lazy load this. I don't know if necessarily just because you can lazy load something you want to. In regards to the render component for the window, for when you're rendering an app, and also the just rendering component for the taskbar entry. Neither of those need to happen on load because there's no apps on load. So if there's no app, then there's not going to be need for a window component or the taskbar entry. So both of those could be dynamic and then they make the bundle a tiny bit smaller. On the note of bundle size, let's do a yarn build now just to see what the bundle size is. And then while it's doing that, I'm also going to go to the apps loader, which is one of the two components that we can do dynamic on. Dynamic components is an XJS concept, but the concept of lazy loading is not an XJS concept. So basically we just take this import here and we just turn it into this style where we dynamically import it and then we as a function, and then we wrap it in this dynamic, which is the Next.js piece of the puzzle. And now that component will work just the same, except it no longer is part of the bundle. So currently the bundle is 204 kilobytes. I think we'll reduce it a few times today. It's probably going to be a pretty minor reduction here because these are pretty simple components. So that was one of them. It's not like I'm loading any fancy libraries that this is going to save. Most of the stuff it needed was already loaded. So it's just the most basic. It's the same here with the taskbar entry. It's looping through this, but this will be empty on load. So this isn't needed yet. I'll just copy the code as I already have it. Copy the import. And then we took this import and we just made it dynamic. Or we made it this dynamic version of import and then even more dynamism, if that's the right word for it. So let's see how that reduced it. What was it before? It was 204 kilobytes. So theoretically, it should be less. At least, we'll let this build. Powered by Red Bull today, by the way. And I'm doing color loop on my lights today instead of just the color of the Red Bull. Now the size is 202 kilobytes. So 2 kilobytes off of our build. Wow. Let's see if it broke anything. Hopefully not. So it's just going to reload here. There we go. So it's still loaded, the app. And if I open a window, yeah, we got our taskbar entry and we got our rendered component window here. Got a loud helicopter flying by. I don't know if you guys can hear it. But it's a loud one. Okay, so what did I call that little commit? Lazy load components. I'm really getting addicted to lazy loading lately. I'm going to undo these file system changes. Those are just from that build command, but I don't need those for this commit. So yeah, I just made those two components a little more lazy, like me. I'll load when I'm needed, darn it. Next on the list here, show peak during min and max. Right, I'm pretty happy about this. So a couple streams ago, I was having a lot of trouble with this. And if you look here, so we have peak right now when the window's open, but if I minimize it and you hover, no more peak because I wasn't able to figure that out at the time. And if you maximize it, also no more peak because the way that maximize was working was doing a transform on the container, on the window container. And so that it would make peak was getting applied that exact same CSS transform because of the way the HTML to image library works. It applies the CSS properties on the container that you want to capture. And by doing that, it was doing like a weird transform. So all my peak maximized windows were offset and all my minimized ones, because it was doing another transform where it was hiding that window or like zero opacity or something, it was also invisible because it was applying the zero opacity. So basically the solution that I came up with was we have that container that I was capturing and all I've done is just wrap it in another container just for peak. So the outer window is still doing its transforms and doing its minimize, maximize as I'd hope it does with the React R&D library. But I have this additional div that pretty much just is max width of the thing it's containing or it's contained in. And it's just used as a reference that I can capture the window. So it's not super complex. Let's start going through it and I'm just going to apply some of the stuff kind of copy paste style because that's a quicker way to get things done, and I don't think you guys seeing me type is going to teach you programming any better than me pasting it and explaining it. And if you guys feel that me typing is the only way you can learn, well, I'm sorry, then. I don't have any other answer. Please stay watching, but Control-C, Control-V is typing, you know, just so you guys know. So I already had styled peak. Oh, right. This is different. I want another one in peak, and I'm calling it the styled viewport. I'm going to call it. I'm pretty sure I tried to copy this, but it did not work. What did copy here? Yeah, nothing of any use. Copy this. You know, I have to do right-click here. Copy and paste. There we go. And then I'll copy the name that I've given it, which is styled viewport. Styled peak viewport, sorry. And I'll just paste it in because it's extremely simple. So this is all that it is now. It's just a div that inherits the background color, inherits the height, and inherits the width. So that's just my way of having another little containing div that pretty much is just hugging the content and allowing me to capture it without having to worry about little transforms happening on it. Now that we've done that, we can do my favorite part, which is deleting code. We no longer need to keep track of minimize. Actually, I'm just going to copy paste, and then we'll go over all that I deleted. Because I feel like when I try to do it manually, that's when I start missing things. I mean, I did it manually originally, but it takes time to do it right. So I deleted, I don't need maximized and minimized anymore. I don't need to look for them as an effect, and I don't need to worry about them on this. So just removals pretty much, just making the code more simple. Just show all the time when the window's open, because I support all those modes now basically. And then on the window, we just need to do the wrapping part where we take the viewport component and we put it inside the window, which is where it's in the system in a place called system, not this one. Oh man, I'm starting to get a lot of files, but I don't know what you can do about that, honestly. When you got a lot of code, you got a lot of files. So it's in here. I'll just paste the changes and we'll take a peek at them. What I've done is twofold, I think, actually. No, I've added that when the window itself is created, it also links to that peek element. If you guys remember from previous episode, there's like a component window element and a peek element, and the peek preview will pick between them. So when you specify peek element, you're kind of saying, hey, use this instead of just using the generic window. So I'm saying on the use effect, you got the viewport. We don't have a peek element yet. Then we want to link the peek element to be the viewport. And the viewport is, as I said, it's just right below the styled window here. So it's wrapping the title bar and the children, the content of the app in this case. It's just another ref, use ref. And then what have I done here? Let me try to comprehend what I've done here. Nothing. I've just extracted this out. Right, this is a format I'm doing now where I don't default like this, where I'm double defaulting. I prefer to do this where I just default on process and then I don't have to do any defaults here. And then I've also added this peek element as part of the process so that I can check if it's already set, because I only want to set it once. So then this won't be in some kind of recursive wonkiness. Let's check it out. Now when I open a window, peek is working still. I minimize it and I hover. There we go, we still see it. And then if I maximize it and I hover, there we go, we see it in full. Oh, it kind of goes over the window. I never considered that. Because it probably wouldn't have looked bad if it would have been the second window. See, watch, I'll do this one. That doesn't look so bad. But there is a little overlap when it's on the initial window. I wonder how Windows handles that. I think it pushes it more to the side if it knows it's going to be over. We'll make a note of that. That's a little tweak that I have not yet done. So I'll say for next stream, don't allow peek window to go off screen. And I think actually this episode, I also do a few little off-screen fixes. There's actually a ton of bugs that I've taken and moved over there. If you see, there's a lot of red over there right now. I actually fixed a lot of bugs recently. But I also keep finding more, so it's a never-ending fight, really. Styled peek viewport. Right, we got the peek viewport now. We've got the minimize maximize thing fixed, basically. It was just those 3 files. Making the viewport, wrapping the window, and then removing all that logic that we didn't need anymore, to those exceptions. No more exceptions. Show peak, drain, min, max. Committed. Like a crazy person. Right, did I save this? There we go. Next up. Render new frame if peak image is blank. I don't know what the heck that means. Oh, this is a cool one that I did. This is an interesting one. At least it's not a lot of code. Let's take a look at it so that I can understand it, because I don't understand it. Yeah, let's take a peek at it here to try to understand it together. What did I do? So the HTML image, I was doing to PNG. Now I'm doing to canvas. So I get a canvas. The reason I wanted a canvas is that the PNG is harder to tell if it's empty as an image. Because when it makes a PNG, that PNG, even an empty PNG has some data. Whereas a canvas, I can see that it's all just a bunch of zeros. So I've decided to do that and turn it into a canvas because for some reason, I haven't figured out the reason why yet. But like, I'll do a demo of it failing on me here. Doom. If I open Doom and I do peak, you see it's black right there. This part's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but for some reason, before this window goes away, it's always like that. But see, watch here, when it's animating, it's supposed to be able to essentially show all the time. You'll see it almost never. There we go. You see a frame right there. There was one frame in peak. It's back to black again. And I don't know why this happens. There's another frame. Very few of them. Oh, what happened there? Hopefully that's some bug that I fixed in another commit here. Let's ignore that for a second. I don't remember it crashing anymore, so I think I fixed that somewhere else. But basically, to stop that from happening, I'm going to detect when I get an empty frame, because the conclusion I came to is the HTML to image tool seems to be giving me empty data. I don't know if that's related to the JS-DOS emulation that's playing Doom and the way it's working with the canvas, or if it's the library. But the solution I've come up with is instead of getting the PNG, get the canvas, and then actually I can read this pixel data by taking the canvas, going get context, get image data of the entire thing, of its entire width and height, which I can grab off the canvas itself. And then once I have this pixel data, I can do a sum, which is like a loop, like a for each. But it says if some of them are true, then that's good. Yeah, exactly. So as soon as and this pixel data is basically just, I think it's just a bunch of zeros and ones, honestly. I mean, it might be zeros up to like 255, or I don't know what it goes to, but I know when there's nothing, that it's all zeros. So that's something I've noticed. Whereas if it's a PNG, you get this like the header of a PNG, so it's not empty. Then I'm having to like store what an empty PNG looks like, and it just gets messy. So this is my interim solution right now, is to see if there's anything rendered, and if it was, then I put it on the peak, and if not, then I run render frame again, basically. So I'm just constantly running render frame until I get pixel data back. And it seems like a weird solution. I'm not happy with it long term, but it did help fix that one example with Doom. I think most of the code's the same otherwise. This preview image piece is still here, preview image. Yeah, all the rest is the same, except that it's a canvas so that I could look at the pixel data, and then here I convert it to the data URL, which is basically the same as the data URL that I was getting from to PNG. And it's just something Canvas can do. Let's try it out. Simple change, in theory. Now when we open Doom and we hover over, you see I said it's black at the start here, but as soon as it goes away and kicks in, I feel like it does now correctly work. Watch. That didn't work at all. What happened? What happened? No, it's still doing the not good effect. Let's go back to the code here. Did I save this? I did. That's intriguing then. Because that was my solution, and I feel like at one point that was working. Oh, wait, you know what? There's two pieces to this. Because currently, the JS-DOS Doom window, if you look at it here, it's got the title bar as well. Another thing that I've decided to do in certain cases is to have the app say, just in the same way that like if you have a video player and you hover over the taskbar entry, in Windows, it'll just show the video screen. It won't show the title bar. That's what I want to do. So I want to say, just focus on the canvas element in this case. So this was only part of the puzzle, basically. This is a better system, I think, because it ensures that I get data. But the reason that this is still working is because there is data. There is that the title bar itself is some pixels, so that they aren't all zeros right now. But when I say focus just on the canvas, I end up getting back an empty black canvas sometimes. So let's do this in two pieces then. This first commit was render new frame if peak image is blank. And that is what it does. It's just not blank when there's a title bar, even though the rest of the image is blank. That commit is fine as is. And now I think if we look, I think the next one will be that thing I was talking about. Yeah, focus on canvas for JS-DOS. So it's the same thing I did with the window, where I add the link element function, and then I get the canvas in this case. I had the screen ref already, which I used for DOS, and then once it runs, it creates the canvas element. So I'm selecting it here via the query selector to get the canvas, and then I'm passing it here as HTML canvas element. I don't know if I could have found a better way to do this. I think not, but let's give it a shot. I think not, but let's give it a shot. Use JS-DOS. That's the JS-DOS hook that I have for making JS-DOS work. In the processes hook, we're going to also take out a link element function, which we're going to use at this stage here, where we grab the canvas and then we link the peak element to the canvas. Now, can I make this any smaller? We have to add link element here as well to our dependencies for the hook, for the use effect hook. I'd like this to just be in here, but I have a feeling it complained about this, and that's why I didn't do that. What's it complaining about now? Yeah, because it's saying it could be undefined. What if I just do that, though? Yeah, I really don't like the formatting there. I've tried to make it, by making it shorter, I made it way longer. So I think that was the compromise I made. I don't know another way with TypeScript. Like, can you do this? Is that a thing? And then this will be that. Yeah, the issue is that it can be undefined. I guess I should check for it. So it knows now it can be an HTML canvas. But I need to say, if there's a canvas, then do link element. I'm going to one-line it. That looks nice, I think. Because then I'm not typecasting, I'm doing it here in the more clean way. So I'm saying expect a canvas element, and then if you got it, link it. I'm happy with that. So now that we've done that, if we refresh here again and we open Doom, now it's focused on the canvas, so when it gets empty, it should ask for more. You see, that's also making it so when I hover at this point, I get nothing, because it hasn't even made one image yet. Here we go. So you see, that's much more, I wouldn't call it fluid, but I'm getting consistent frames, so I'm getting some kind of peak. And if I minimize it, I think I even get better. Yeah, then it's a much faster thing. I can almost watch it playing Doom here in this little window. But this is something, you know. I'm consistently working on peak. It actually has other issues anyways. How's maximize work? Oh yeah, maximize is a mess for this one. I'll make a note of that because I didn't know that. Maximize for JS-DOS for peak is distorted, askew. What's the right word for that? Messed up. That's the official word for it. Foobar, actually. Foobar. That's right. There we go. Fix peak not showing. Is peak not showing? Peak showing now. It's trying to suggest from here. That's GitHub Copilot confusing me with its suggestions. What did we change here? Anything of use? Yeah, now we're focusing on the canvas. In general, I like this idea. I think I'm not doing this in a few cases, such as for V86, I don't think. I don't know if I updated that later to allow V86 to also focus on the canvas. No, because V86 also sometimes is not the canvas, and it's a collection of spans contained within a div. For Ruffle, for the Flash emulator, that one also works weird, unfortunately, with peak. I've got that noted on my board here. But you see here, if I open a Flash app, the Badger one, let's say. So that one here, if I hover over here, you see we get nothing. But if I minimize it, it plays extremely, I wouldn't call it smooth. I think it could have sampled even faster. But when it's minimized, it does show fine in the preview. But it doesn't seem to be able to show 2. And maximized, I think maximized maybe is working okay in this case, except again, it's not showing. So that goes back to some wonkiness with how canvases work. I'm ignoring that error, by the way. I think I fixed that in a second. Okay, Focus on canvas for JS DOS. I like it. And we might do the same for Ruffle in the future, but I have to figure out why Ruffle doesn't show at all right now before I try to... I think I tried at one point to focus on the Ruffle canvas and it didn't fix nothing. So don't you worry about that. Oh, and as far as why, if you remember me doing to canvas, I could hear people maybe thinking that this could be inefficient because I'm already passing a canvas, so I should check if I have a canvas. But the issue with that was that this get context isn't always 2D. Sometimes, like in the case of this JS DOS, it turns out it wasn't. It was like WebGL or something like that. And then when I did that, get image data didn't work the same. It ended up just being a headache. So I found that allowing HTML to image to make this converted canvas that happens to always be 2D, in which the image data is easier to get, that works fine for me, even if it perhaps is a little inefficient. The peak frames are currently only every 1 second, I think, or half a second. I don't know if I'll increase that in the future or do some kind of performance detection, but at the moment, it's not on my radar. Not important. Next up, gotta check process when linking. Oh, okay. This is probably why it was crashing, I bet. Yeah, I think so. I think in all other cases I have been, but not in this case. Yeah, see here for peak element. Let's take a look. Oh, there's only one case where I'm setting peak element? That doesn't seem likely. Link element, sorry. So if you see in the cases where I've used link element before, like here, I check for 3 things: the process, the thing I want to link to, and the thing I want to link. Not so there, but that one's not a good example. Here's the bad example. Here's another good example where I check the 3 things. So the thing I'm missing is checking the process. So the process was empty, I think, and that might have been what was causing the issue. I've also reorganized these to be a little more the way that I prefer them to be, which is the process, the element I want to link, and then the element I want to link to. Update these. And we already had that. So actually that was all that was needed for the fix. And let's see, I'm pretty sure that was the fix. So now when I open a window and close it, there we go. It doesn't explode anymore. If I close it from here, yeah, that was it. And that's that consistency. I wish there was a way to lint that to like check for like, hey, you wrote it this way twice. Are you sure you want to write it this way a 3rd time? I don't know if there's Copilot. I need Copilot to have a discussion with me, you know? I don't want it to just throw text in front of me. I want it to be like, hey, you know, think about this line in comparison to this line. It's not there yet. I'll put this as check process when linking. Good advice. Good advice, so I said it twice. Next thing up, animate start files list. What is this? Animate start files list. Oh, this is a fun one, right? So in Windows here, you see I've animated the start bar, but this piece here just kind of is attached to the start bar. In Windows, they actually go up at like a slightly different pace to each other. And that's what I've kind of done here, is this like staggered pace. So let us try to copy that by me attempting to find where the heck it is. The start menu, in this case, the sidebar. Oh wait, we need to discuss the solution, so that let's go right to the part where I solution this guy. I think the solution involved padding top. What I'm going to do is I'm transitioning height right now. Oops, let me switch back to the browser. Right now I'm transitioning the height. So the height is increasing at a certain easing speed. I'm also going to do is have a padding up here that's going to be pushing it down. And as the height's increasing, that padding that starts high is going to be shrinking. So it's going to be moving the elements that are within this up. Now, I only want to focus on these elements, so I'm going to tell the sidebar to be completely static, stuck on the left, and padded in a way that makes this position the way that I want it to be. I'm not going to say this is the best way to do it, but it is a way to do it. And that's all I care about at the moment. Actually, no, it's not, but if you have a better way, please suggest it, honestly. I'm always open for any kind of constructive criticism. Or destructive, I guess, as long as it's in good faith. So the change I've done so far, before it was just the height, and now I'm saying that it's also padding top. So these are kind of inverted. So when the height is full height, the padding's nothing. When the height is nothing, the padding's going to be full height. So they're kind of going to be inversing each other to give this effect. And yeah, that's the basics of that. So I'm just, I said setting padding top. Now we're gonna be explicit with the sidebar positioning because we're gonna use, if we were to just do that right now, I think let's just see what that looks like. That doesn't look right, but yeah, you see the sidebar as well is part of this transition. It's kind of not so bad in that you can see that the icons are transitioning up at their own speed, but I want the sidebar to remain not moving. Gonna go into the sidebar here, like so. Styled sidebar. So you see here we got 48. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it height for it. It's 48, and I'm gonna have a width for it, which also happens to be 48 in this case. And we'll also use these same numbers here, which is always nice. There we go. They're themed now. And now that those are going to be part of the theme, we can reuse those. I'll go into the styles, default theme sizes, and within the start menu below height, we'll add that sidebar piece where we got the 48. Now those are part of the theme. And the next piece of the puzzle is the start menu, I believe. No, incorrect. The styled sidebar, now, like I said, has to have a non-moving position. So we're going to say its position is absolute and it stays at the top. So the sidebar, the little thing on the left with those 4 buttons, is always at the top. Absolute. Regardless of the padding. Based on its container, though. So it's still within the start menu. These are 48, so it's going to be 48. The issue is now that it's position absolute, the icons are going to go over top of it. So to bypass that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add padding to the left of the start menu now. And to do that, I'm going to go into the styled start menu. And I'm going to do a nice little trick where I can say, just in the case of the file manager, the exact file manager, I'm going to import it in. I'll just show you guys what I'm doing here and then I'll explain it. There we go. So the file manager component is those 3 icons like Doom, Ruffle, and whatever. And I'm going to say that exact component, when it's inside the start menu, I want it to have padding left of the same width as the sidebar. So that'll push it away from the sidebar. Now if we look at the start menu, there we go. So the sidebar is always right on top, moving up with the start menu, but the icons are moving at a separate pace, kind of, to give that effect that's more like how it is in Windows. Might not be perfect yet, but we'll adjust it in time with a fine-tooth comb. I think I've got the basic idea. At this point, you can kind of adjust the easings, adjust the transitions. Here's some of the easings I did the other day, a Bezier curve that you can do with Framer Motion, where you just specify these four numbers and different transition times here that I've decided on. Anyway, I think that was it for the animating of the start files list. Wasn't too hard, not painless, but I think I've saved it. Let me commit that. And let us move on to the next one here. Package FS updates. Yeah, we just did this already. Nothing fancy there. Not going to do it again. Move context factory to utils. Yeah, this is just a minor change that I wanted to do. Because I'm making another generic one in a second here. So I've decided in context, this little lone guy sitting here, we're just going to move him into utils. I'm going to move him. We're going to try to update the imports. I don't know if it's going to properly. Hopefully it does. So I'm going to say the context factory is a utility. Looks like it updated it properly and put it in the right positions for me, which I like. And the context factory is now in there. We're going to make another factory for a certain kind of app that I've realized is basically the same always. The same basic idea. I'm not sure if these little factories or these generic components are the best idea, but I like, if it's the same idea in all of them, I want it to be in one place so that I can improve it in the same place too. Assuming that it doesn't deviate from that idea. That was the context factory move. And part of moving, oh, I missed a part. Weird. Why does it, why was, I did not move that piece last time? That doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, okay. I don't understand that. That's two commits that were just one thing, basically. This was me making a commit mistake. Container component for JS-DOS. Ah, here's where we make the container component that I was talking about. So you can see there's quite a bit of red here. And I think JS-DOS is the first one that I ended up replacing. Let's go look at JS-DOS and try to explain what this generic... Actually, maybe I just make the generic component too. I'm going to call it the container component, and it's also going to be in utils with that factory. And I'll just paste it in here, and we'll take a look at it. So it's going to, the basics of it are like how several of these apps are. If we go into components apps, if you look at JS-DOS app, and you look at the Ruffle app, and you look at the V86 app, all three of these, there's a similar idea here where I'm making a styled component that I'm referencing as a container, which I'm passing to their hook. Same thing here, passing to the hook, the container with the styled component, hook, ref. So basically these three are the same idea. I'd like to generalize them so that the initializer of the JS-DOS, Ruffle, and V86 is essentially this generic component. And then the logic is just focused in the hook. Also, I see here a message from Stefan Wixfort saying good morning. Hi, Stefan. Nice to see you. Feel free to throw a message in the chat. Good to see people tuning in. Where was I? Yes, this generic component. So that's what this is basically. If you see here, it's very similar. So let me minimize this for, oops, I can't minimize much of it. It's the container component takes an, just like this one where it takes an ID. This one takes a little more than that. It takes the ID, it takes the hook you want to use, and it takes the styled component you want to use. It gets the URL in all three cases. In all cases here, it needed the URL. In these two cases, I was getting it here. In this case, I wasn't, and I was getting it in use Ruffle. We're going to tweak them so that they're more consistent with the standard. They're all div elements, so I've decided to just use that as the generic way that I'm doing these container components. And the basic idea is that the apps that use libraries where they say, give me a container, those are the apps that I want to make this way. And there's quite a few of them still to make that are basically that same way. It's a pretty common way for the apps to do it, especially with WebAssembly, where it's like, hey, just give me a canvas, give me something to draw on, give me a box to put some elements in. So in these, I want to make it more generic, basically. And that's all. It's all doing just what that JS-DOS one was, making a ref, running a hook, passing the container, using the styled component. That's my concept of generalizing it. And the first use case we're going to use is for the JS-DOS one. I just created the component. Oh, it looks like I'm going to do Ruffle at the same time here, even though I didn't mention in that commit message. Maybe we do these in 3 parts, actually. So that was just making the container component. Let's do that as a commit. Created generic container component. Now we have that as a resource. And the next one is going to be converting JS-DOS to that container component. And it's basically just going to be a bunch of red and a component that's absolutely simple now. Here it is. So you see here it had those hooks and stuff, and now it's just that. What is it complaining about here? I need to fix this hook now first. But you see here how it's very simple now. It's just saying JS-DOS is going to get an ID, and it's going to make a container component in which it has a div element as the container. Wait, did I decide to not pass types, I think? I think so. I think that might be my mistake here. Why it's complaining. Yeah, I've decided for the container component, it's all just div elements, so I've decided not to use generics. So let me just delete this. That doesn't need to be there. There you go, even more simple. That's how you make a container component then. You give it an ID, you give it this hook that you make, and you give it the styled component. Now there's another piece to this JS-DOS one, I think. Yes, I think the hook itself needed to slightly change to fit this new formatting. And let's take a look at what changed. So as far as the component, I pretty much removed everything that was generic and turned it into just that. And then for the hook, what changed? Good question. Oh, why is it not showing? Oh, it is showing. I'm just happen to be right on the right line. So right, I've decided to use this more consistent name of container ref. It's called screen ref here, but it's actually not the screen ref because it makes its own canvas. So it's a little confusing. It's a container for the screen. That's why I prefer to call it container ref. And I just updated the name here, updated the name here, updated the name here. And I also removed this saying canvas element, didn't I? Oh, this is me messing with the change I already did again. Let me put this back. Shame on you, copy paste. Now that's called container. Oh, and now that's looking ugly. Which means now that other one looked better, hey? And I know it's going to exist, so maybe this was better and then not waste my time with that condition. Maybe the way I wrote it was nicer, honestly, the first time. Yeah. Just say it is this. It's not undefined, trust me. If it fails, you have bigger problems. Okay, so it's basically just a rename, really. I didn't need to change the hook at all. I changed it here though. Convert JS-DOS to use container component. One down, simplified. And then the next one, I think you guys know, is going to be the ruffle component, which is exactly the same concept. I think it's pretty much implemented the same, but I think the hook needs to tweak a bit. I'll change the ruffle piece to be no passing types anymore. Just like that. And now use ruffle is complaining because it's expecting to be a little bit different. Let's take a peek at what I've changed with use ruffle. Let us see. So for use ruffle, right, now I'm passing the URL, whereas before in use ruffle I was getting it, but that wasn't consistent because in v86 and JS-DOS that work pretty much the same, I was getting the URL ahead of time. I think that makes sense for the way that I'm using these hooks. So then it doesn't even have to know about use process in this case. That can be done at the container component level. Renamed it to container ref, and now it's a ref instead of being the element directly. Those are two of the big differences. So now I need to do .current here as well and a rename, but that was it. So not a lot had to change there. Just get a little bit different data from the hook. I'm going to use the same exact wording except the word ruffle. Convert ruffle to use container component. And then I think the last one will be the v86, and then we'll have 3 of these generic components. But for that one, I think it's a different commit. Generalized container components. Ah, yes, I already did that change. Ah, and here's the v86 one. Yeah, I kind of snuck this one in here. It's a good thing I'm inspecting all these because I was getting a little sneaky. These 2 I already did. Now we can do the v86 one, it looks like, and this is pretty much dedicated to v86. Oh, this piece here. What is this? What have I done here? Oh, right, this is when I added. Oh, right, for v86, we needed to add the ability to also pass children in, because the v86 example, it is another container, like styled container, but it also expects there to be an empty div and an empty canvas. So I've added this ability for container components to also pass some children in. Let's do that as a separate commit. On the container component, we have the ability optionally to pass in that container. To pass in JSX element, which I'm calling children, and they'll be put in here. And if there's no children, it'll just be empty there. So we'll say allow passing children to container component, like so. And now that we have that, I think we have everything we need to do the v86 convert, which is several files because it's somewhat bigger. First, we'll do the main file here. Now, there's two differences with v86. One of them was that another thing I wasn't consistent on that I want to fix is here I've used v86, but then I have this use v86 screen size. I feel like use v86 should know to use its screen size hook. So this, I want to move into that and then make it consistent. Also for the lock mouse being linked in with the container, I'm just going to do that via the add event listener command because it works the same, and then it allows me to have that consistent structure. So if we paste this, you see here now it's pretty much just like those two other ones, but there's also this v86 children where I've made a container JSX fragment here of that div and that canvas. And that'll give me that exact same styling where it's a styled v86 component that has these two things in it. So I think I'll be able to use this format for other apps as well, and to reuse this container component style as a very easy way to make a generic app where if you have a library, just make a hook and I'll give you the process ID, I'll give you a URL, and I'll give you a canvas to send it to. And you can make a styled component, you can add some children in there if you need them. I think that'll be enough for that. Now we need to change the two hooks. First hook is the use v86 hook. Actually, it might be only this hook we need to change. I don't think we need to change the screen size one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think we can update the types too. So for the types, I don't need this piece anymore, the v86. Now, why is that? Let's double check why. Let's see what I changed here with the hook, just to figure out why I don't need that anymore. So now screen size is being ran in here. Screen container has been renamed to container ref to be consistent. Right, I don't need to return... Right, before I was returning an object so that I can get lock mouse. And I also had the emulator. What the heck was I doing with that? Oh, and then I was passing the emulator to the resize hook. I'm doing that all internal now, so I don't even need this type because I'm just exporting void now. That's just the name. That's just the name. Here's where I added the container click now. Instead of having the on click on the styled component, now I say the container you gave me, if you click it, lock the mouse to the v86 window. And then at the end, I run the v86 screen size where it does the auto sizing. Now I don't need to export this stuff. And it made it yet another generic component, kind of. Let's give it a name of exactly the same as these two. Convert v86 to use container component. There we go. So now, pretty much, that's like almost all our apps, honestly, at the moment. If our apps here, JS, DOS, Ruffle, and v86, are all using this generic container component now. So if you look at their indexes, they're essentially identical and very simple. This one with that children thing. And then the only two odd mans out, File Explorer, which is using the native file manager component as its only thing, no libraries. And WebAmp, which has its own total window and doesn't use containers. It actually builds it all with elements, with HTML elements. So I've pretty much handled all those cases right now, all types of apps at the moment. We have the windowless app, we have the container app, we have the app that holds a internal component. It's nice to have some of those tools to work with, those Lego blocks. What's the next thing here? Use numbers, not strings. Okay, right. So this is something I noticed. This is a long story short. I'm making... Basically, this could be strings or numbers, but had they not been synthetic events, it would have had to have been a number. So it's more generalized to use numbers. And the reason that I discovered this synthetic events thing is I was playing around with the idea of using Preact, which is like a React Preact. It's like a smaller version of React. Fast 3 kilobyte alternative. And the big difference between it, if we look at the differences here, and I got it working, by the way, and it was fast, but I'm still debating if just React by itself is already pretty darn fast, version 17. So if we look at events, yeah, synthetic events. Preact browser supports targets, does not require this extra overhead. So there's no synthetic events with Preact. So when I switch to Preact in the test, it started not working some of these things because it wasn't processing this string properly. But switching it to a number works fine in React too. So I like using this more general version. And also adding pixel is unnecessary anyways. I don't like it. And I think that's all that this change was. So let's do that change first, now that I've explained that. And I think there's another thing I found via that problem, or via doing that we'll get into. Now, is this a case where there's certain cases where you do want to use the string? I think in this case, yes, because I'm setting a CSS property. It's when I'm applying it to the element directly. Those are the exceptions. And I don't think window transition is one of the exceptions. Let's just do these one by one. Oh, it is one of them. So I spoke out of turn there. Let's get rid of this one first. So much nicer to just be able to use math here for the number. And same with icon here. These, because this here height is being literally applied to the element, is it? I don't think it is, honestly, though. It gets applied to the styling. I don't know if it needs to be done there. Here it needed to be done, at least. Here it was applying to the element itself. And here it did not like height being a string. But React synthetic event allowed it. So now we're more consistent there. There almost should be an ESLint rule stopping me from having done that, but there wasn't. And I think we can also get rid of pixels here on the default window size. We can just say 200. And we'll confirm that suspicion here. If we look where it's used. Yeah, it's being used here, which this is a number and this is a number in this case. Yeah, this is clearly a number because there's math going on about it. So if we can use numbers here, let's use numbers here. And that's the only place it's being used. So in general, I wanted to use numbers, not strings. Use numbers, not strings for dimensions on elements. Pretty good explanation. Commit another one. Commit number 16, was it? That's the 16th commit. Need a bit. Oh man, I barely drank my Red Bull. Actually, full discretion, I had the purple one earlier today because I didn't think I'd make it through this episode. Not that I have. We're already in an hour, though. It's always right when I check. I always check right at an hour. I got internal clock. Because I wasn't looking at the clock. So where were we here? This one. Specify focus and blurs to capture. This was another one of those things I noticed with the pre-act thing. This is tricky, and I'm not sure I'm going to explain it right, but the idea is that on blur, on the React synthetic events for on blur, capture. Yeah, if we see here, it talks about the capture phase here for, no, not for pointer events though. Here, for supported events, the event handler below are triggered by an event in a bubbling phase. To register an event handler for a capture phase, append capture. So this here would make you think that doing on blur the way I did would give me a bubble, which actually wouldn't have worked the way I expected. So I think for on blur and on focus, there might be something going on with React 17 where it's acting like capture. I could be wrong about this, but if you hear me out here. So when I switched to pre-act, this stopped working, and I figured out it was because this was bubbling. So the default behavior for a non-synthetic element is that on blur bubbles, but on blur capture is a real thing too. So I've decided to switch all my on blurs and on focuses to be on blur capture and on focus capture because that is what I want. And again, that works with React. So it's interesting that switching that made no difference to React. I think blur and capture totally would have made a difference. It also means I don't know how to make the blur and focus events to be bubbling. It's a good question. I don't know. But let's just switch these then on blur. This is for WebAmp. We're going to have to switch all of these to capture events. And as far as bubbling versus capture, basically just the order in which events occur that all have event listeners on them. So if you click something, Does it start going click and then this thing that had click and then this thing, or does it go the other way around? And there is a little bit more to it than that, but I am by no means an expert, good sirs and ma'ams. I'm just going through a list and changing some words. But this was a conclusion I came to through some thought. And it's the kind of thing I probably wouldn't come up with on the spot. Where is this here? Menu index. Some of these items are getting tough to find because I got a lot of folder structure, but I'm not sure it's that it's unorganized or I just have a lot of stuff. Is there a way to have a lot of stuff and for it to be organized? I don't know. I'm just going to finish doing these, and then I see I have a message that I'm going to respond to, but I want to make sure not to miss these. I'm kind of minimizing them as I go in my browser to make sure I get all the ones. Again, on use focusable, I have a couple. I had these all over the place. We're going to do a double check too, where we run it through. We do a search, sorry, and just to see if there's any lingerers. Lingerers, man. What happened here? On blur capture. What did I mess up there? In events here. On blur. Oh man, I'm starting to go bug-eyed. I was having some eye problems earlier today. I don't know if I'm staring at the screen too much or what it is. Let's have some water and see if that helps. Let's drink it in the most messy way possible. Ugh. Man, there's too many on blurs and on captures here. Let me just start searching for them. No, here's one. Okay, that was those. And for focus, oh, here was another one. Man, that was a lot of them. Okay, I think I got those. Like Pokemon, you gotta get every one of them. Okay, I think I got them there. I'm gonna do save all, and then I'm gonna do a global search. So if we look for on blur, you can see they're all captured now. Ignore that one. That's the library. I don't care about that. Oh man, my eyes are starting to go rough on me. Hopefully I can get to the end of this, guys. Yeah, we switched them to capture events. So that's just making them more explicit. I think it's probably for the best. If we ever do go with Preact down the road, or if React switches to non-synthetic events, then I'm prepared. Because I was already being explicit with how I wanted the capturing to occur. Am I right? Hopefully I didn't miss anything there. It seemed like I didn't, but who knows. My eyes are starting to go a bit wonky. How many more commits we got here? Well, quite a bit. What's next up here? For the styled sidebar, I think what have I done here? I've decided to use one size and just make it a square, I think. Yep. Let's just do that. I agree with that. So the start menu in Windows is a little bit more square shaped. So I'm going to switch it to be called size instead of height. And we're going to just change it. And we need to change it in a couple other places. So this will be size now, size, and size. And then we just have to switch. Oh man, my eyes are messed up now. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be eye strain. My eyes have been a bit strained lately. Too much looking at the screen, not enough? I don't know. Not enough sleep, probably. Let's take a peek at what that looks like. See if we haven't broken too much yet. Basically, just the start menu looks a little more square. I mean, honestly, it doesn't look very square, but to me it looks touch rectangular, but if it is, it is. Start menu, same height and width as canvas. I like these GitHub suggestions. Come on, Copilot, give me something useful. In all fairness, with all this copy paste, I'm not giving it a fair chance, but when I wrote this stuff out, it honestly didn't give a lot of helpful suggestions, to be honest. Reorganize package and rebrand. Oh, right. I decided not to do some of this. Some of this I do want to do. I want to reorganize the package JSON just to clean it up a little bit, a little easier to read. few things I don't care about. So the repository, I don't care about that. If you guys are going to find it, you're going to know the repository. It's the only place it is. I'm going to keep its name as X for now, but down the road I am going to change it actually. I'm going to change its description too to be just OS in the browser. Keep the author, keep the license. I'm going to move the browser list up here to show what's supported right below the license as far as browsers. And then as far as this here, I'm going to go alphabetize this. I'm going to do the alphabetize lists website because it works. Alphabetize. There we go. It's probably a better way to do it, but that worked. Fix our commas. Just to keep it organized, honestly. I prefer it alphabetized. And I think I also wanted to do the same for lint staged. I think lint staged was going to have this at the bottom. Yeah, it's going to be wildcard, then TS. Where's comma? Oh man, jeez, my eyes. Yeah, there we go. Prettier, then style lint, then ESLint. I think I'm a little more happy with that. So it's like the resolutions, dependencies, and dev dependencies here. You got the commands here and here. And then you kind of have the information about the repo and the author up here. Pretty minor, I know. Reorganize package data JSON. Dunsies. Formatting tweaks to app hooks. That looks extremely minor. What did I do here? Okay. Hey, whatever. It's something. So I think I messed up a yeah, this doesn't need to be there. Just like a little new line. And then I also decided, let's just run this at put this at the start of the list so it's a little more visible and not kind of hidden behind this massive use effect. Those are really minor. I'm not even gonna do any review or anything. Add them to the list of notes. Move on. Minor package upgrade. Don't need to do that. I've already done package upgrades. Skip another one. Don't change name yet. Yeah, I decided to change it back. This time I didn't change it at all. Keep window in viewport. Okay, this is a nice little cool one. So I made a function here. Is rectangle outside window. Basically, the idea of this here is watch. So, oops. We go here, we open a window like so, and let's say I put it there. You see, I can't go outside the window. I go there, but then if I don't want to resize that. Let's go, well, I have no option. I have to do it. Wait, maybe I can do it here. I just don't want to resize DevTools because I have it in a nice position. Let's see if this one won't resize. I put the window to the bottom, then I close it, and then I make DevTools bigger, and I open it. You see it's missing there. So if someone does a landscape switch, it's kind of similar where if they open a window, close it in a position that was visible, and then the frame switches or whatever, you get this issue. And then as soon as I try to move it, you see it does that jumping effect where it's like, hey, I'm out of the viewport. Let me jump back in. I just want, if it's outside, just center it again. Just reset, you know? That's easier for me. Okay, cool. So our DevTools is still at the right height. So let's do that. Let us do that. And like I said, I've made a function that I'm going to put in the utils, the generic utils, where I basically calculate that. It's an extremely simple function, one-liner. And this is actually GitHub Copilot did help me out for this. I think I did like, watch. Const is rect. Oh, but now with this right here in front of it, it's like too obvious. Let me delete this so I can't see that. And let's try to do it with GitHub Copilot. Const is rect outside window equals. And look, so it's already suggested this rect client rect boolean. Okay, and then I'll put a bracket here. Give me a function. Oh, it suggested some stuff. So there we go. So you see how it kind of gave me a cool little suggestion there. And I think that it was something like that that I started with. So this is where GitHub Copilot could be cool. Is I think I just did that just to be like, without Stack Overflowing this, give me a suggestion. And then the one that I came up with had a similar thing where it was like, is this the same? Here it's adding position stuff together. Yeah, here it did left and top, but I wanted the X and Y. I guess it's the exact same thing, honestly. But I think X and Y is how this was set. So I was passing X and Y and not getting it all from the rect. Instead, I was just getting, just give me the 4 numbers. In this case here, it's getting this client rect object. But the idea here was the same. Of like adding these two together is greater than the width. Yeah, don't worry about that. Although, what was that doing? If X is less than 0. That's a good point. Yeah, I guess. If X were less than 0, would this ever happen though, realistically? I suppose it could. This is like another conditional check. It's a smart check, actually. I'm just doing these 2 checks here. But it's true that if either of those conditions ever occurred, we wouldn't need to waste our time with this piece. Maybe it's worth adding, but I just wonder if X could ever be below 0 or Y could ever be below 0. Maybe if you drag the window there and then you resize it. I just don't think it would work that way, but perhaps it would. It's kind of a nice check. Let's add it. If X is less than 0, or Y is less than 0, or those other conditions. Okay. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Thank you, Prettier, for formatting it. So now this is the condition. Is the rectangle outside the window? Well, we have its position, its coordinates. We have its dimensions. So are its coordinates outside? Are its coordinates outside of the range? You know, which is 0 to 0 to whatever the maximum happens to be. The maximum being these window numbers here that we have. So what we do, if it's something, either it's 0 or above, then we say, okay, give me the width as well and the height, and add those together. Say, is the width of the window... I mean, it's basics anyways here at this point, but that's the basic idea. So we have the function. Let's not dwell on that any longer. Now, where do I need to apply this function? To the use draggable hook, because the draggable hook also does the positioning logic, because it needs to know where things are being dragged. So that's kind of the place where it made sense to put it, honestly, when I was building it. So I've imported the rect. Oh no, darn it. Let me jump back to the code here. How long have I been not on the code, I wonder? Hopefully not too long. Sorry if I have been. If I've been on the code for too long, I basically just changed it to this. But, oh man, I never went to that guy's message. Let's jump to the messages here. Got a message here from Stefan. I've been wondering this for some streams now. What exactly is the purpose of the stream? Is it some kind of code review for you? Because you obviously did write the code beforehand. It's an opportunity to show the code, explain it, to think about it, to decide if I still want it. And just to kind of show the process, because I feel like if I were to do a stream where I did some of these things, it's pretty slow. I can't speak out loud about what I'm doing when I don't yet know what I'm doing a lot of times. And even something simple like this, maybe it took me a couple hours to kind of get it all perfect over a 1-day period, let's say. So the main purpose of this, I mean, and to get it all down on video of doing the project. So if people in the future ask, once I finally post this and they say, well, how'd you make it? I can say, well, here's the videos. Every single line of code has been committed in these videos, and I go through every one of them. So that's probably one of the main reasons I do it. It's not necessarily me sitting down with a little free time to code. I don't call it free time. I take my side project pretty serious at this point, but I have that time throughout the week. This time during the stream is to kind of go over my thoughts and explain it to you guys, and to make a cool stream, hopefully, that people have interest in seeing, and see the progress of this project, and see a side project going from hello world, from nothing to what it is now, and will be hopefully by the time I release it. So thanks for asking, Stefan. Sorry for taking like 25 minutes for me to answer your question. Hopefully that adds some clarity. Back to the code. Use draggable. I just updated it. Imported the rect. I added a Boolean here where I check is off screen, where I take the rect and I pass in those 4 pieces of information: the position of the window, its XY coordinates, and its height and its width, which I get here by also getting window size instead of just getting position as before. I had to rename it from size to window size because I already had size somewhere. Or did I? Did I? If I didn't, I might not rename it this time. Oh yeah, I had it here. What the heck is this for? Where is this coming from? Size. Oh, it's up here in use draggable. I just didn't see it. I'm blind. I think at one point I had it up there. Anyways, yeah, that's why I renamed it to window size, because there was already a size. And then the other condition I added is that if it's not off screen and it has a position, then use the position. Otherwise, go back to the default stuff. So in this case, if it were off screen, this would fail and it would jump right to the others, which are the cascade or the centering logic. Let's try it out. If we open another window here, get File Explorer going, you see it's working. If I close this, it opens where you'd expect. But if I were to move it here and close it, you see, watch, I open it, opens right. Okay, but then if I make this bigger so that it's going to go over the viewport and I open, there we go. It goes back to the center. It resets itself. So this means that windows that start up will no longer be able to jump out of the viewport. And then once it's started up, ideally you aren't able to move it out of the viewport. So keep window in viewport. That's the goal of that. Save that and commit that. I think we got another message here. Stefan. Yeah, I get what you mean. And no, you haven't been away from the code for too long. Cool. All right. What's next on my list here? Keep window in viewport. Done. Keep context menu within desktop bounds. Right. This was the next one. So if I right click on if I click here, this is my custom context menu. If I open one of them here, let's say drag it over here, you see when I open that, it's going off the screen. Basically, I just want it to be offset. And same here, I also want a little bit of control in that this one actually, it does do a little bit already. If I click here, you see it doesn't go off screen, but on Windows, it also doesn't go above the taskbar. So I want the taskbar to be the bounds of the screen. And I don't know how it could ever go above here, but even if it could, I just want to make logic so that that can't happen anymore. And basically that's the logic right there. It's just one file that I had to upgrade. The menu-index here. This controls the context menu that we see. And basically what I've done is I've added a little hook here that adds an offset. So instead of just doing the X and Y as they're requested from the right click, it's going to also take into account this offset that will only be set if it needs to. If it's out of the screen, then we make an offset to kind of put it back around. Here we keep track of the offset. It starts at zeros and zeros. And we also get the height. We also get the taskbar from the theme so that we can know its height to do that to make sure that we go above it. And then here with the hook, all we do is when we get the X and we got the X and Y and we got the height as our dependencies. And let's see what we do with it. We look at the menu. We need to know the menu's size. So we do get bounding client rect on it. We get its height and its width. We also get the window size to know what our viewport is. And then we calculate the offset here. No. This is a function I made to make it a little quicker. I'm not necessarily happy with this function being here now that I look at it. But it's also very generically named. Calc offset. Maybe it's like calc difference. Let's say calc positive difference. Maybe just diff is fine. There we go. That stays on one line. So the idea behind this is that this function, I'm going to move this into the utils. is that it takes two numbers and it gives us a positive number back that's the difference between the two. So it's assuming that this number needs to be rounded. That's interesting off the top of my head. How would I expect that? I should just do the rounding here, honestly. Or I should be rounding both numbers. Let's round both numbers anyways. Because if we look at B, in this case, it could have been an odd number. Unlikely. So we're rounding both numbers, and then we're... Actually, let's just do the math and then round the sum of them. I think that works. So yeah, this assumes first number and a second number. I guess that's okay. If you flip them around, it wouldn't give you what you'd expect, I suppose. Yeah, I really don't necessarily like the name of this, because the reason that I did it this way is it's so simple that I could just do this, just do the logic twice. It might be one of those cases where it's better to just do the logic twice than try to explain the function. It's not as dry, but there are cases not to be dry. Yeah, I think it just gets the point across better like this. Let's just round at the end here, honestly. I mean, if it's 0, it's pointless, but maybe there's even a check for that anyways. Now it doesn't fit on one thing, but whatever. That's okay. Okay, so yeah, the basic idea is I get that window bounds, I get the size of the context menu, and then I calculate these differences where I say the offset, or to get the offset. So it's never going to be a negative number. It's either 0 or a number that's bigger than 0, which is why I'm using mathmax. And if it's a number bigger than 0, because we're dealing with these rects and stuff, it might need to be rounded to be a clean integer, which I prefer in the offsets. And round will go up, so I'd rather it go a little out than the other way. It's going to be 1 pixel difference anyways. So in the case of the width, we take the width of the position of the context menu plus its width. And the, wait, what? This needs to be changed too. This is now a minus number. Then this could be in brackets, I guess, here. Not necessary? Okay, fine. This as well needs to be subtracted. And is it the same story? If I put it in brackets, it's like, don't worry about it. Yeah, okay. So that's the math, basically. You just got to trust me on it. The width of the position plus the width. Let's say it's on the corner plus that minus the width to know how much you have to offset it. Same here. It's height up and down minus that height for the offset minus the taskbar. Let's try it out. The math's not super complex. I think it's harder to describe than to just look at it almost. Let's try it out now. So now when we click here, there we go, you see. Now it stays in the window, even though I click here. It didn't go outside. And same with the bottom. No, that part didn't work quite right. Let's refresh this. Should have been outside the taskbar. What happened there? Maybe this is slightly wrong, and maybe my code was wrong? Keep context menu within desktop bounds. Let's try the code as it was a second ago when I did the original commit, just to make sure it didn't at one point work and I just broke it again. Because that happens. Now let's try. There we go. Now it's on the taskbar. So I did break it somehow with my wonky math. Maybe this just needed to be in brackets here. Somewhere it needs to have brackets. There we go. That bracket it was okay with. I think that'll probably fix it. Yeah, there we go. Now it's staying within, you see here, above the taskbar and outside the window. Now it's staying within the bounds. That's what we wanted. So now the context menu can't go outside the bounds of the desktop portal, nor can the window. Let's commit that. Close these 47 windows I opened at the same time. It was called Keep Context Menu Within Desktop Bounds. There we go, another one done. What's next on the list? Keep window in desktop bounds. Okay. Is window outside? Oh, I think I renamed it, I guess, slightly here. This function, did I? I moved it out of here. What did I have here? It was in here before. I switched it up a bit, and I've moved it inside the window functions. That might make more sense. I think this was specific to the window, because I didn't even reuse that rect logic for the context menu. It wasn't relevant. I think that's why I decided to undo that. So, not undo it, but I'm gonna... Yeah, pretty much undo, honestly. But maybe I wanted to keep that part now. Paste in that function. This was the new function. Yeah, let's keep this piece here. That was this piece here. There we go. So otherwise, let's take this back, get rid of that function there, and then we're going to put it in the system window functions. Put it at the bottom here. We need window state to be exported because we're going to reuse window state. Now let's look at that function first. So it was pretty similar to before here, the way it does the comparison. That didn't change for the window. But what did change is that Did anything change? What changed here? Before I was taking X and Y and height and width. And now I'm taking the bounds. Oh, right, because before I was just assuming the entire window, but I think I want to specify a bounds. Is window outside of a bounding square? And then I've also decided now that this is focused on window, rather than getting X and Y and width and height, just give me the window state that I already have, which has position and size, and then I'll do all that. So I think that makes that piece a little cleaner. And then because I'm using window state, I needed to export it so I could import it here. Okay, that works fine. And now it's focused on being about the window. I'm happy with that. The next piece is the use draggable, where we replace it. Because I want the window, in Windows, it won't open under the taskbar, but you can drag it under the taskbar. So mine is going to still allow dragging under the taskbar, but not restoring from the taskbar. So if we see here, now we've gotten rid of the isRect. We're now getting the isWindow outside bounds from the window functions. And instead of doing calculating here, we're just saying, give me the window state. And don't even take size. You already needed position from before because it's being used here. But don't even take size anymore. Just give me the window state that you already had. And then here we're going to calculate the offset. And instead of using window, we are going to use window here. But here we're going to do window minus the taskbar height now that we already had. Oh man. Darn it. Sorry guys. Again, I didn't switch to it. Here was the explanation. But I hate when I don't switch to it. Luckily, it's simple code. Instead of the isRect outside window, where we just use, remember, inside this function had just straight up window. Now we take window and we also account for the taskbar height. So you'll see here, if we open it, we can drag it below. Oh wait, can we? Yeah. It doesn't look like it here. Hard to tell. Here, wait. There we go. You can see that the window is below the taskbar, but if I close that and I open it, it'll go back center. If I go right here where the taskbar is, then it's okay with that. But if I go a tiny bit below it, then it's like, hey, I don't want to open below the taskbar. Maybe it's a little pushy, but I think it's no big deal, honestly. Windows does so many more heinous things with moving my windows around all the time. This is just about restoring the state of the window. So we'll call it keep window in desktop bounds. Looks good. Move the generic function into a slightly less generic folder. Slightly. What's next? That was it for that. Oh, okay. Use yarn, not npx. I know what this one is. Right. This was the auto husky thing decided with its husky hooks for its pre-commit to do npx. But we've already assumed you use yarn here. You got a yarn lock file. I wanted to specify yarn here as well, which I realized that I could do, so I've decided to do it to stay consistent. Use yarn, not npx, for husky pre-commit run command. There we go. That's as minor as they get. Custom BFS build. Right. So this is where I start changing a bunch of stuff with BFS. Let's do these things one at a time, because some of these are fixes. So this was one thing I for the longest time couldn't figure out how to do this HTTP request, because I was trying to do that. And then when I started looking at BrowserFS code, I realized HTTP has to be capitalized. So that'll be one of the first things we do. Is just in the file system declaration. I always wanted to use HTTP. XML is just an alias. I just didn't know how to use it properly. Specify HTTP request and not XML for FS config. Minor little first step along the way to this BrowserFS upgrade. That doesn't do anything, but it also means we don't need that alias anymore, because we're going to go into BrowserFS and we're going to cut it apart a little bit, which they recommend. If you go into BrowserFS's GitHub here, and you look at the backend.ts or dot, here we go. If you want to build BrowserFS with a subset of the available backends, change this to build it again. So I copied the repo locally, changed backend, changed a few other things, and ran the most basic build commands, which they basically say here. They say do yarn install, and then it's just yarn build. And we'll do this together. But that was the one change we just did. The next change here, yeah, I think I'm okay with this for now. The idea here is that I've switched to using browserfs.min.js. This allows me to do my own custom builds. So we're going to do that. And we're going to use the build that I have, but then we're going to see how I got there. I'm just going to copy it into the right folder. So I'm going to make a folder called browserfs in my libs, and I'm going to paste that min file in there. There we go. I don't have that to share with you, so I wasn't showing you guys that. But this is where it's going to be. So we're going to now go into the place where I set up the file system, which is in the context file system, use file system context state. And within here, where is it? Here it is. So the trick that I'm going to do is I'm going to still use the BrowserFS package for the type declarations, because now that I'm building my own custom build, I wouldn't have those otherwise. I'm going to import the BrowserFS and call it BrowserFS, and it's coming right from that public libs BrowserFS. This is one of the few cases where in the libs I'm directly importing it, but it's because I want the file system to be part of the bundle anyways. Because I'm removing backends, the bundle is also going to be getting smaller, by the way. So to keep the package here, but have it focus on types, I'm going to say import type of everything as the iBrowserFS, like a BrowserFS interface from that original package. And we're also going to take the package and we're going to move it into just the dev dependencies. So if we look in our dependencies here, we have browser FS as a dependency. I'm just going to have it as a dev dependency because I only need it now for type definition, and otherwise I use that library that I've custom built. Don't know why I needed to stop that, didn't really. So now that I don't have the same custom imports, all I have to do is just put them here. So I say get those 3 things that I was importing before from the package. Now I get those from this browser FS bundle as a type of this iBrowser interface, which is everything from that original one. So that was my little trick way to just use the package but still get the exact same type definition. So if you see over these here, it still knows exactly what they are, which is good. That was that little piece of the puzzle, including that. Yeah, okay. So we'll just say this transition step is move to using browser FS custom build. And before we go deep into how I made the custom build, maybe we can do the rest of the file system fixes. Let's take a peek. Fix icon for 100th time. Yeah, this is another random fix. We'll get back to the browser FS thing. So we made a custom bundle for browser FS. We'll discuss what that custom bundle is, but it's going to be the other repository, and so we'll go into that in a minute. But the thing we did to allow loading the custom bundle, that I showed you guys. I mean, I'm going to show you the whole thing anyways, but this is just the icon slightly wrong again. I don't know how, but just the spacing between this little piece right here below the text and the button. I feel like I'm always tweaking it. I don't know how. I think it's one of those things where it's like the CSS joke with the Venetian blinds. So for now, it's 2 pixels again. At some point, this was 3. You probably won't even notice a difference, but there's a little more space here, and I think it's more correct. I'll make a little bit nicer commit, but I'm just as frustrated that I had to change it again. Let's say adjusted file icon height yet again. ... Okay. That one's done. Base BFS without backend only. What does that mean? Okay, yeah, don't worry about that. These are like several package updates I did along the way. We're going to discuss the final package update, but there's some of these things that were in my code. Here was a nice one for hiding that deleted file. So if you open up here and if you rename something, it's considered a delete. So if I open here, now it's showing this. Now that file, you actually can't even read it with the file system. It doesn't allow you to read it. So I think showing it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to consider that a system file, and I'm going to make this concept called system files and the ability to hide system files. So we're going to add that to our file entry functions here. A new function called hide system files. And the basic idea of this function is it's a filter function. Maybe I should say filter system files. Probably better. We're going to import system files as a constant from here, even though I don't have it yet. And the basics of the function are pretty simple. It's going to be another set. So this is the set of files. If it has this file, then filter it. Then return true or false or whatever it is that filters it. False in this case, I guess. That's all there is to it. You pass the directory as a curried function parameter argument, and then file is what gets passed to the filter function. Got a message here from Stefan. Going to be off in a couple of minutes, so wish you a nice stream. Thanks for the visit. Thanks for the wish of a nice stream. Nice to see you. We got this filter system files function. Now, where do we use it? We use it in the use files hook. And simply enough, right here where we're appending, I'm just going to switch it to basically be the content. Yeah, that's all I'm switching here. Let me just even undo that. Basically for contents, I'm just going to switch it to say contents.filter system files. And then I pass that directory to curry this function specifically for that directory. Import this function. clean up the imports because it did a bad import there where it does the dot dot. It's not the ones I like. There we go. So now when it reads the directory, if it's getting the initial directory, it's going to on initial directory load, and any time where it's getting a fresh directory list, it's going to check for that system files that are going to come from this array that we still haven't quite made yet. The array is just going to be that deleted file for now. It's going to be in my constant file. Alphabetically, I'm going to put it below here. So system files, it's a new set, and the only file in it is that root deleted files.log, basically. That's the one we're looking out for. Okay. I wonder if that makes sense, though, because is this always going to return? Yeah, because I'm asking for the directory, so that's okay. So these system files are very specific. Like, you have to specify the exact path, but that's okay. Otherwise, this function's ready now. This piece is ready, so in theory, it might hide it already, but I think I had another file change. That's why I'm confused. Oh, yes. I just have several file changes because there's several things I did wrong. Let's go on to the next thing. Let's go into the test here. There we go. So it's gone. Oops. Sorry, guys. I switched to the browser here. So it's gone now. It was there before, but now it's gone because it's filtered. That's step one. We're going to call that hide system files. And in the future, we might just make those transparent or something. But like I say, in this case, for that file, there's almost no point in showing it because it's just inaccessible with the way that BrowserFS works currently. Hide system files. Nice. Now, there were some other pieces to that change that I wanted. Yeah, I did the hide system piece. There's two bugs here that I had found from before that are here. Now, this one, I don't know how it manifests itself, but the issue is I think that this, on sometimes directory itself is that, and then you're getting dash dash. I'll show you an example here. We'll just console log it just to see. Should see it pretty quick. When does it appear? When's it? Oh, is it when I rename? What's the scenario of that here? Oh yeah, that was for renaming in this case. So let's rename something in the root. There, you see, so it's got two dashes. That's wrong. That's one of the same bugs, actually, ironically, that I'm going to be fixing in BrowserFS. That I found. They had the same problem where they make this directory like this, and they assume that this will be always like /icons and then no trailing slash. But in the case where it's root, it itself is a slash, and then you get this double slash, and it's causing those duplicates. So we'll fix that in a bit. So now we just say, is the directory the path? If it is, don't do anything. Otherwise, we'll add the path. So we'll make that as another fix to the BrowserFS. Don't use double slashes on root. On root renames. That's another bug in our code. And then finally, one of the other bugs was one where it's changing multiple things on the list. Oh. Sometimes it gets broken. Let me resize that again to get my video port back in. Okay. If I rename again here, I'm expecting... Oh no, I want to show you guys the other bug. So the other bug here involves that it's doing a search and replace on the list here. So if I name icons to icon, now I got icon and I got favicon. So now if I rename it again, SSS, it's changing both of them. It changes icon to icon SSS, and it changed favicon to favicon SSS. So that's another bug, another mistake I made. Let's switch to the code. and just see that one because that's another easy one. Basically here, when I was doing a rename, I was doing a search and replace over the list. That's definitely not the way to do it. I can map these to change them, but there's only going to be one. It's going to be an exact match. So if the file equals exactly the base name that I'm looking for, then use the new path base name. Otherwise, just give me back the file. So it's not just a generic replace of strings, in other words. So we'll clear the file system again. Let's try it again. So now I name it icons to icon, and then I change it to icon SSS, and it just changes this one. So that's yet another bug here. Only rename the exact file. So those were some browser FS bugs I had on my side. Let me check if there were any others. There might be more. Just dealt with those two. That was part of that first one involving the system files. Updates to renaming. Nope, that's more browser FS. Improved FS changes. That's more browser FS. We might be at the last one here. And then, yeah, there was just a few more little config changes that I wanted to do. This was another... This is actually going to break it, but then we're going to go to fix the... Well, actually, it's not going to break it because now we're using that custom build. So one thing that I couldn't do with the old build that I can do with the custom one is it was requiring the store name as well. And it was an issue where it actually just needed options to exist. So if I did that, that actually also would have worked because there is a default for store name. I want to use the default. So now what I've also fixed this needing of an empty array. So now we don't even need to specify options at all. And then here I decided it's easier for BFS JSON. I'm just going to just name this index because it's in the indexes. I'm just going to say index, and then I'm just going to straight up pass index like that. That's a little cleaner, I think. Oh man, there's a huge bug trying to come in my window. Just massive, like that big. That'd be, hopefully that thing doesn't get in. That would be fun. Okay. Simpler FS config, as you see. We don't need to specify the store name, and we can be a bit more generic with the name there. Oh, this bug is crazy. Okay. Where are we at? We're almost at 2 hours. We got the simpler name there. I think we've just gone through every single change that's not the custom browser FS. Double check this one more time by opening these all really quick and just burning through them. Yeah, that was the basic one involving the original import. That was the icon fix. That was just package, the system files, the 2 fixes of mine. Yeah, more package updates, and that's it. Okay, so I think it's time we jump into what I did with browser FS. Let's switch our code from my code base. So I have in my public libs browser FS, I have the minified version of the build that I want. I'll build it one more time as we do this example to commit that final one. But otherwise, I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna maybe, where is it here? Where did I specify move here? Move to using custom build. I'm gonna make another extra note. Customized browser FS build. And that's essentially the step we're going to do right now. And it's going to be probably the last step of the night where we go through their library and just kind of see some of the cool things we were able to change. Oh man, this bug is big. It's like some massive cockroach looking thing. Luckily, it can fly, it can sting, it can poison, it can sing. Okay, let me switch here to, browser FS was minimized. Oh no, it wasn't minimized. It's actually dead right in front of me, pretty much. There. So now we're on the browser FS code. This is their bundle, their repo. I've taken their master repo, and I've looked at the source. They have their backend files. If you remember in their instructions, they said to go to core backend and remove stuff. So you see here, here's what core backend looks like. Basically, to remove stuff, all you have to do is just delete an import from here, delete it from this list, and delete it from this list. And if we look at the difference file that I've made, that's what I've done. I've just deleted the ones I didn't need. So I wasn't using async mirror, Dropbox, any of these ones I deleted. And just removed them from the list, like so. And this makes the bundle a little smaller. I don't need any of these things. And then as far as the next couple things, there was two other little things I did. So one of them was in this util, this generic util piece, and it involved that options that I was telling you guys about. So you see here with the issue, one of the bugs was this opts, file system opts. They did not have a default of empty, but what they were doing here was they were trying to loop through it. So if opts doesn't exist here, that was causing an issue. So I think it was the opt info piece maybe was looking for store name or something and not finding it here because this isn't an object. It might have even been expecting to fail here too, who's to say? So this is much better now, basically just a simple default. That was one of the pieces I did that allowed me to have an empty options. Otherwise, IndexedDBs cause an error on instantiate when being constructed. And then let's get to the big part. So the Webpack config, that doesn't matter. I just switched it to development mode so I could look at some of the issues I was working on, but this isn't part of the build. The only other part of so the backend part is part of it where I removed stuff. I fixed this so that I can do my don't need options, and then I changed some stuff in overlay. And I'm going to make a PR for this, and maybe we'll see it next week. Let's see what I changed for overlay. So one of the issues that I had was that same one I was telling you about, where before you see here, P can be a // and then if it was // the F path being the file that got deleted, it was never able to find it in this deleted files array because of those double slashes that weren't supposed to be there. So I just do a check now that if it is the root where you're deleting stuff from, then don't add that slash, because then you're not going to get a proper comparison when you're comparing object keys. It's not like fuzzy comparison or nothing. So I fixed it in read directory, and I fixed it in read directory sync, even though I don't use read directory sync. Fixed in both because it's real minor, just changing the path. The next thing I changed was adding this delete path in the case where is it that I do delete path? Two places. In rename and in rename sync. So in both cases, I updated the synchronous and the asynchronous command with the same fixes. If we look at the synchronous ones, it's easy, they look more simple because they don't have the callbacks. So basically, the way it was renaming a folder is it adds them to the deleted files if they were on the read-only directory, and then it creates them on the write-only directory. But it was showing a duplicate of the folder because it never makes an entry in deleted to say that it actually deleted the whole folder. It just talks about the sub files inside it. So I was getting duplicate folders showing up and deleted. So that's where I fixed it here by adding this delete path piece, which is kind of what happens at the end of the rename on a per file basis, but it was never happening for the path itself after the rename was complete. So after the rename's complete, then we delete the path. And it was the same story here for the asynchronous one. It goes through and deletes all the entries for the files, then deletes the path. That was the next fix to get rid of some duplicate deleted files as well. And then the third thing here was this create parent directories. So this was where subdirectories I wasn't able to move because it wasn't creating all the proper subdirectory paths on the writable file system. That's the way that this overlay FS works. So I had to kind of sleuth and dig to figure out a lot of this stuff. So here's the synchronous fix, and then in the asynchronous fix, I just wrap it in the create parent directories async that existed. And for all of these cases, I actually just looked at other things, other commands, and they are like that. So I think it's just inconsistent. Like the rename does unlink at the end, but in other cases, like when unlink is run separately, it does this. Or when make directory is run separately, it was doing create parent directories. But for rename, it seems like the original programmer may have forgot to do that step, I think. So this allowed me to do rename on nested files. And those were the only fixes I did. But it fixed a lot. So now I feel a lot more confident with the renaming at the moment, where I can rename a folder Doesn't cause an error, doesn't cause duplicates. I close it, I open it. Before this was it was showing that deleted file that I couldn't move. It was causing duplicates. It was causing mutex errors. Now everything works fine. I open it, it's there. The files are now there. If I go, let's say the images one, or not images, icons. Oh, icons still named from before. You see it persists just a lot better. It remembered those settings. So we're getting a much more stable file system, which is nice because we're going to need that when we start working on more interdependency between the things. We already have a lot. I mean, there's a skins file there. We can rename it to skins. And then it's there, and it still works just the same. It loads the Winamp skins. Cool. So we fixed a ton of stuff with the file system. That's it. I think this was a big refactor episode, it looks like, for the most part. Let's recap the list here and see if that's the case. Let me switch back to my... Oh, wait. Let's do a build now. So then those changes. I do a yarn build of the browser FS build. It creates the build simply enough. Doesn't look like there's any problems. There we go. It makes it. I copy the minified file over there. And then we switch back to my other code. And we see it didn't even consider it a change. So that build that we just saw was already the build we're using. So I don't need to do another commit. And yeah, we've simplified the code. We removed some stuff. We made some generic components. We've got things properly staying in the viewport, things properly displaying. I think we've improved a lot today, including the file system, which is a nice one, because the file system was bothering me because that's a core system thing, and I was having the most simplest renames weren't working, which was kind of frustrating me. So we fixed that as well. We've only just broken the 2-hour mark, but I guess I had a short week, you know. I was a couple days where I went to bed at like 7:30, right when the kids went to bed, and then there were a couple days where I stayed up till 2 o'clock trying to figure out this file system stuff. But thanks for staying with me, guys, throughout it all, guys and girls and such. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please throw me a like, but please subscribe. Come on. It helps me. It motivates me. I like seeing that number. It makes me think, cool, people are into this. People are into this. I like it. I hope you guys are getting something from this. If you're not, please throw me some comments on what you want me to change. Feel free to check out my repo and play with it a bit. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you guys very much for checking out my video, and see you in the next one. Bye.